Powered by Riverside FM.
All right, so for this Browns Backers interview, please help me welcome one of our good friends that we met at the Browns Backers President Summit this year, the president of the Bowling Green Browns Backers, Lauren. Hey, Lauren, how are you? Thanks so much for joining us.
Good. I'm glad to be here. Excited about this.
Absolutely. It's going to be a good time. I wish the Browns were better so we could be more excited, but it's going to be a good time nonetheless. Yeah. So before we get into the Browns, though, I want to hear about your chapter. Just tell me everything that you can about them, viewing location, when you were established, number of members, those types of things.
All right. So I'm located in Bowling Green, Ohio by BGSU. We were established in 2010. Our viewing location I actually own. It's a bar here in town, Campus Quarters. My husband and I own that. We bought that in 2005. And
that's the cue.
That's
the cue. Kenny was asking before we got started what the cue in your logo was. That's the cue.
Yep.
That makes sense.
That's for Campus Quarters. Yep, that's us, the viewing location. And when we bought the bar, the previous bar manager was a Steelers fan. So there was a lot of Steelers gear in there. And my husband, I think I mentioned this when we met, is a Steelers fan. It was, So that's been a journey in and of itself. But I had to work really hard to get it to be a Browns bar. And so little by slowly, customers helped me by stealing signs. Just kidding. But that did happen. I'm not going to say. But
however you got to do this,
Yeah, we slowly built up our Browns gear, I guess, in the bar, and I applied to be a Browns Backers bar. My husband was a little frustrated, but he is a Cleveland in general fan. He's Guardians, Cavaliers, all of that. So he understood the benefit and the appeal, and I didn't give him much choice. So 2010, we became an official chapter with an official viewing location. Right now, I think we're at like 434 as far as online portal members. My club's a little unique because it is a college town, so a lot of our members are only here for a few years at a time. They still maintain membership and they come back. Homecomings are always fun because we get some crew in there for the games. Some old faces I haven't seen, which is really unique because we don't, you were right earlier, we don't have a stadium near us. We're about 2.5 hours from Cleveland. So it's different trying to lure people out to come and watch with their friends and families and fellow Browns fans. It's been a unique experience, but almost 15 years in, we're stoked and still going.
Nice. A couple of things real quick. One, at least we know that some Steelers fans do have a small amount of brains.
Yes.
And he understands happy wife, happy life. And
right.
And there's a Browns Backers bar because of it. So we really appreciate that part of it. And the only downside there is I was really hopeful that you were going to say there was a bunch of Steelers stuff in there and we burned it.
Well, I will say a nice story is we have like a pretty big back section with like indoor cornhole and stuff. And on one of our really high 30-foot walls, we had a Steelers country banner that was there. And about a month into us owning the bar, somebody ripped it down. And we really don't know who, but somebody ripped it down and they peed on it.
Nice.
Well, I was like, it's pretty much the world telling us we just need to be a Browns fan.
Yeah, the other part of this is that it was a Steelers bar and it closed. So, I mean, that,
right?
Just saying.
Yeah, we're taking a move.
Yeah.
So you mentioned obviously a lot of the folks probably coming through the bar are students. Do you get a lot of family coming in to maybe visit students during family weekends and things?
Yeah, we just had a family weekend this past weekend, and so you get a lot of parents with their kids coming out, which is fun. Our bar is kind of set up for that. Like, we're the bar you could take your family to.
Nice.
And we get a lot of crowd, and it's nice to see. They're always impressed that there is a Browns backers bar out there, that this is something that we provide for the community, and it's a big hit.
Nice. And so I know Browns backers in general, everybody knows you guys are all huge fans of the Browns, and the fact that you have Browns backers bars and locations speaks to that. But what a lot of people don't realize, I think they're starting to realize, we tell them about it all the time, but
every week,
is just the amount of charity work or the amount of community service that all the Browns backers chapters are involved with. So are you involved with any charity or community work?
Yeah, since 2012, we've worked with the Autism Society of Northwest Ohio. It's called ASNO for short. You can find them at asno.org. They're a local, Northwest Ohio-based autism resource for the community. They help connect caregivers and parents and family with resources that they may need. They help guide them through the diagnosis process and transitions from little kid work to high school, transitioning to college, transitioning into adulthood. So they're doing a lot of good work for the autism community in particular. And it means a lot to us. My son was diagnosed with autism. I have twin boys that are 13. One of them was diagnosed with autism when he was about 18 months old, which is kind of young for a diagnosis, but he had regression, which is scary, but it basically means like he was the first one that would shake your hand as a baby and be like, very nice to meet you, and do all these cute, clever things. And he just went silent one day, and we called it his quiet time. And he was diagnosed with autism. He didn't speak again from about, I would say 15 months is when he stopped. And the only sounds he made was laughing or if he was crying. No eye contact, all the signs. But because he stopped, because he was progressing and then he stopped and regressed, it really alerted us right away that something was going on and allowed us to reach out right away to the doctors, the Autism Society, all those places, and get him started with therapy. And he's like a thriving middle schooler now that does Quiz Bowl and knows every single flag of every single country in the world. So they were a huge part of his development. So I felt like that was a good way for us to give back to the community, which is something that the Browns Backers Worldwide organization really focuses on, is, promoting obviously the Browns in a positive way, but also we as fans giving back to our community and recognizing that we in this role have an ability to organize and fundraise or volunteer and help out. So this really was one that we did. The first year was kind of fly by the seat of your pants. And still, I feel like it's like that sometimes. But we went, I think our first fundraiser, we raised about $500 or $600. And we just finished our 12th one. It was on the 13th. And we've raised this year's tallies over $8,000 already.
Wow.
Still waiting for a few last minute donations. But yeah, it's been amazing being able to give back and really having the support of the Cleveland Browns. A lot of people don't realize that the Cleveland Browns kind of created this opportunity for Browns fans. I think they realized that Browns fans were doing that already, coming together and watching together, celebrating together, and they really encourage it. And they are so massively supportive of our fundraising goals. You know, we can send in a request to get autographed items to help our raffles or auctions. They provide contacts for getting players and alumni to events. It's a great resource for fans, and no other football team in the league is doing as much for their fans in a capacity like this. I mean, if you think about it, we're all over the world. I think our club tally or our chapter tally is 370 or close to it. So there's a huge fan base out there, and all of these backers, chapters, are raising money for charities of their choice. And it's amazing how much the Browns Backers Worldwide organization, as well as the Cleveland Browns organizations, really encourage and support that, and how much they do to give back to their communities wherever they're located in the world.
Absolutely. And I know you have a particular story. We talked about it at the Browns Backers President's Summit with your charity and something that you were able to do for them during COVID that we'd like you to share if you could.
Yeah. So what a lot of people may not realize is places like the Autism Society and other charities, they rely on continual donations in order to fund their events, pay their employees who don't make much to begin with, but do all the hard work. And really, they operate on a grant, essentially, and everything else for them, all the money they need for them to operate fully and really impact the community comes from donations. And during COVID, not only were people out of work, but businesses were closed, income was down, and people stopped donating. They didn't have the luxury of the expendable money to give to others. They may have lost work, but donations were down. And we held, during COVID, we actually had to postpone our autism fundraiser, which was heartbreaking, but when you can't have more than 15 people in a space, it's hard to do events like that. So the year after, we went really big and really wanted to have a great example of us giving back to support them since we missed a year. And that year we ended up donating, I think, just over $7,000. And when I spoke with the director, Kate Schwartz, who's an amazing woman who busts butt every day, every week to apply for grants, she's literally a one-man show there. And she was like, we wouldn't have been able to cover payroll and to cover our events without this donation. That's how much their donations decreased or stopped over COVID. And that's a huge thing. There are tons of families that rely on them for support, meeting groups. They have all these things, functions for children with autism, for teens with autism. And all of that was at risk. They had already minimized, gotten rid of events for that year. And it was amazing as a club chapter to come together and be able to not just raise money for them like we typically do, but to do so in a significant way that really allowed them to continue operating that year and give them that space they needed to build back some of their donations, to get people back into the swing of donating. And you know, the director was like in tears that year. She's very humble and works very hard. And it's just a great source of pride for myself as the president but in my chapter, in the members that come every year, that show up regardless. A funny fact is this was our 12th. In all 12 years, the Browns have only won one time during one of our events. And that was last year. So we don't have the best record on that, but we have a good time and we raise a lot of money and a lot of awareness. And so it's worth it for sure.
To be fair, things like that, I don't think the Browns have a good record for anybody for anything. So
I know.
Not over the last 25 years, no.
Yeah, I mean we're the best fans in the world. I didn't say it was the best team in the world.
Right. And,
but
ups and downs. We just need ups.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. What an incredible story, though. I mean, that just goes to show you the direct impact that these groups have on their local communities. And it sounds like you got a really nice relationship there with them, just over several years helping them out. It sounds like they've been there for you, too, in your own kind of personal journey.
Yes.
Just an awesome story all around. We appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, and so, it's just, I mean, it does show just how much Browns backers groups are giving back to those charities and what they mean to those charities, just as far as operations and everything that they do throughout the year. Just amazing story. But
we're proud.
Yeah, you should be. But the other thing, obviously, we talk about the charity side of it, and that's what we're, you and us as Browns fans, we're most proud of. But we also do root for this team. So we're going to switch gears here a little bit, talk more on the football side of things. And to start that, one more thing for your chapter, do you have any events coming up?
We do weekly watch parties. We also do a weekly 50-50 that I have members suggest different local charities. On the November 21st, we'll be raising money for the Bowling Green Schools Foundations. This helps with the elementary, middle, and high school students in our area. Helps provide, the school's ability to donate items. They do things like backpacks for those in need, similar to what we did at this past year's function. They provide resources, pizza parties, all these things that really keep the kids ready and willing to be in a school environment, having a good time and learning. So we're really excited about that one. That's November 21st, if that's the Sunday, I think. But we try to get input from our club members. So anybody out there that's looking for some money raised in the VG area, contact us. We love to help out and support.
Absolutely.
You know who to call.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so, more on the football side of things before we get into the actual team and how they're playing and those sort of things. We try and postpone this as much as we can this season. What are your thoughts on the stadium decision? I mean, obviously they've announced that they intend to move to Brook Park. I know there's some politicians up here trying to sue them, but that's not going to go anywhere. They're not leaving Cleveland. They're just moving to Brook Park. So, what are your thoughts on this?
I love that stadium. That was like what gave us our football team back, and it really was a big thing. But as a fan, we've all been to a game in December by the lake with the wind and the snow, and it's hard to watch games there, regardless of the football, because it's cold and it's, a wind tunnel. Anyone that's ever been to a game in the winter can attest to that. So I think the idea of a more covered, I would love a retractable dome, but having a cover really does provide a lot more options. I think it will help with attendance, people knowing they can go to this game regardless of what the weather ends up being, and be able to enjoy themselves and stay dry and watch the game. I think location, It's different. It'll be weird not having it by the rest of the Cleveland city life, stadium, the Cavs arena, all those places. But it's such a great area. And if you consider how many more things we'll be able to host at that stadium, whether it be concerts, fundraisers, stand-up comedians, games, other things, it really, I think, will end up being beneficial for Cleveland, having these options available that we didn't really have with our current stadium.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things we noticed is the Browns, when they put out the renderings of the stadium, the new stadium, it was clearly geared toward, like, the one photo showed a pop concert, and it was Taylor Swift that they were saying they were trying to bring there. But they said it without saying it. And so, yeah, I mean, to your point, all of the events that they can bring in that they could never have before are phenomenal.
Well, and I think to your point, too, just around business development, what this is going to ultimately lead to, I believe, is just like an urban sprawl towards that area. So you're just going to see more and more businesses, restaurants, hotels, bars, those sorts of things kind of pop up on the way to the new stadium.
Yeah. And so onto the team that we all love to root for. I think that's why I have such a bad cold. Is I went to the game and I watched them Sunday afternoon.
And they made you sick.
It really did. And I hate to say that, but that was the most interesting football game I've ever been to in all the wrong ways. So. This past Sunday, fan favorite Nick Chubb came back. So let's start out with the positive. How excited were you to see Nick Chubb return?
Man, I've been waiting. It seems like for longer than he's been injured for him to come back, and I think first game back, he's got 22 run yards, 10-yard reception, and touchdown. For someone that was that injured for that long to come back in and step up like that is just a credit to his character that Browns fans, I think, all understand. He puts in the work, and it really feeds the fan base. He really knows what we want, knows what we like, and he just keeps chugging. He's the best.
Yeah,
I love Chubb.
Yeah, it was. I said on our live show Sunday night, I said that was the loudest during player introductions. There's not that many people. Not everybody's ready to go in the stadium yet. Like, everybody's still filing in. Get in their seats, those types of things. But that was the loudest I've ever heard a crowd during a player introduction. Everybody went nuts.
Yeah, so I feel like the city has kind of embraced him as like a representation of us, someone that wants to get in there, do the work, have some fun, but really focus on the winning. And his drive is just unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure. And so on the flip side of that coin, a guy that has the fan base completely divided and went down in this one. What were your thoughts on Deshaun Watson and kind of how the crowd reacted when he went down with that injury?
So I never want to see, at least, a professional athlete get injured in a season ending or career ending. It's tragic. And so the booing or the cheering at his injury was a little harsh, I think. I think it probably stems from just overwhelming frustration at how this year's gone with him and his performance. But again, it's pretty tacky to be cheering for anyone to get injured. But I feel like I'm looking at this like a positive. I feel like he was in the game, kept in the game because it was a principle type of thing. Like, we're paying you this money. You're supposed to be our quarterback. You need to be out there working, building this team. And I feel like fans never really saw him embrace that. They didn't really feel like he was going out there and giving his best and trying to win. And he has potential, but there's no delivery. So I feel like ultimately this opens up an avenue for at least this season to get, DTR or Winston in there and hopefully build some team camaraderie. I feel like this year especially, you used to see them go out there and they look like they're having fun and they're excited to be on the field and ready to get back to work. And I feel like so far this season, we've seen a team that is frustrated and doesn't feel like they have a good leader in there that's rallying them together and getting them to go in there and play the game of football that they love. And I feel like at least the Browns always play the best when the team is like a cohesive, getting along, enjoying each other, valuing each other's contributions. And we haven't really seen that this year. So I'm excited. Hopefully we can, depending on DTR's injury, his finger, maybe we can get some consistency in there, even if it's not, Tom Brady level quarterbacking, somebody that can, bring this team together, give them things to catch on a consistent base, set them up the way that they're supposed to. So it's unfortunate that he's injured and out for the season. But I feel like it kind of gives us a second chance on the season as far as mentality goes.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, that's kind of where we landed on it.
I think that was the most succinct analysis of Deshaun Watson we've heard from anybody all year long, was that there's tremendous potential, zero delivery.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, that's the story on Deshaun Watson.
Yep.
Yeah. And I feel like Cleveland will rally behind someone that's struggling if they're making the effort and if they're building that team, and he just never gave that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think to your point, like we saw that last year, right? When Deshaun went down, and we're looking around going, we don't really have a good option at quarterback. Like to your point, like the team came together. There was camaraderie. They were playing for each other because they knew they were alone in that foxhole. That was all they had was their brothers in arms, and that was fun football to watch.
That was some of the most fun football to watch.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and so, kind of moving on to this week's game, but a follow-up to that question, and you mentioned DTR and Winston and kind of what's going on there. Who do you think is going to start between those two? Assuming DTR is healthy.
Assuming DTR is healthy, I don't know. I'll say personally, on my fantasy football team, I've been starting Winston for the last 2 weeks.
Just hoping that, yeah, I like that.
He got me 10 points yesterday.
See,
there you go.
See, I've been saying for the past 2 weeks on our show that I think this week I didn't have him, but 2 weeks prior to that, I had Jameis Winston as my player to watch because if he got into the game, we had a chance. And
right? Yeah. So. And I feel like I'm a big fan of DTR. I think it was the first year that we signed him. We had our Browns Packers event out there, and you got to see him on the field. And he's really talented. Throws money passes, at least at practice, But I feel like either one of those two, when they step in, they have enough respect from their team that they're able to set things up. They're younger. I feel like they read the field different. And I feel like they fit our type of offense a little bit better than Watson has. I feel like we've been trying to work around Watson instead of finding a quarterback that fits our strengths and our abilities. And so I'm a big fan of DTR, and Winston, I feel like he goes in and he performs, So
it sounds like you're okay with either one.
Yeah.
I'm okay with either one, I think.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and so one of the things, you mentioned, I just thought this was funny and I had to point it out, was You mentioned that either of these guys seem to be able to run the offense better than Deshaun Watson, even though in the offseason, that's what the Browns did, is they built this offense completely around Deshaun Watson's skill set and what he was supposed to be able to do.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting, and you're not wrong. And that's the problem. And to just go back to what you were saying before about a lot of potential, no delivery. Yeah, we built an offense around a guy based on his skills that other people run better than he does.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is what it is. I know this whole thing's been talked about ad nauseum. So, for this game, regardless of who plays, Winston or DTR, what is your score prediction for this game against the Ravens?
I'd really like the Browns to squeak it out here, and I think there's.
Don't be afraid to pick against the Browns.
No, I don't want. I never. I'm not kidding. My fantasy team is full of Browns players because
you don't win a lot of fantasy football.
No, I don't. But in my fantasy football, the Browns are on top, and so I'll say. Let's do. I think we can squeak out a good 37 points, and maybe they'll have 30.
Dang.
I mean, I like it. I mean, they're going to have to probably score 37 to beat that.
That's going to be like as much offense as we've produced the entire season so far. I like where your head's at, Lauren. This is going to be a fun game to watch.
I love the fact that our fantasy football team is all Browns. That's true dedication there.
Absolutely. Like, I don't care about winning. I just love the Browns.
That's right.
Everyone in my league loves when they play me. We'll say that.
That's okay. But one last question before we go. We usually ask this. I was having a cough attack, having a cold, doing all kinds of things here, trying to make it through. Yeah, and so how did you become a Browns fan?
I grew up just east of Cleveland, about 30 minutes in Madison, Ohio, right up on the lake. And obviously being close to Cleveland, we were Browns fans. I remember as a child of like 7, 8, making signs like poster board that we'd hunt down, Go Browns, and hanging them around my house, like off the staircase before every game. You know, my dad was a fan, my grandpa was a fan, my mom is a fan, my grandma, who's 93, she was going to every home game. I mean, it's just built in us, I guess. And I was, a part of the people that cheered for the old Browns before we went away. And so during that gone time, I didn't really watch football. And then as soon as they were back, I was back. And I don't think you can, it's very hard, as most Browns fans will admit, it's very hard to be a Browns fan, but it's also very hard not to be a Browns fan. Like, literally every year, I get this feeling like, I think we've got it. Like, we can do it this year. And
we know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, it makes us a unique breed of fans, I think,
Yeah. No, and that's great. I love the stories of you guys making homemade banners and hanging them up and stuff. That's awesome.
That's how you end up with a fantasy football team full of Browns.
Yeah. But I mean, you put it. I think every Browns fan can relate to what you just said. It's hard to love the Browns sometimes. But the minute you get it into your head that you want to root for somebody else, or you're like, I'm fed up with this, I want to try and go a different direction, maybe I'll pick a new team. Then you start looking at me like, but I hate that team because they're not the Browns. I hate that team because they're not the Browns. And then you come back to, well, I guess I'll just keep being a Browns fan. And it's like I love to love them, even though they break my heart so often.
I think that's what's so unique about Browns fans is that it's really in the heart. Your head can be telling you that this is wrong.
Yeah,
but
you're torturing yourself. But yeah,
yeah,
agreed.
That's fantastic. But hey, Lauren, listen, we had a really good time talking to you. We could talk all day long about the Browns and about chapters like yours that make the Browns backers such a unique and wonderful organization. But unfortunately, we do have to get to the rest of our show. So,
all right.
Listen, we really appreciate you being on with us. And hopefully we'll see you again soon. I know we'll probably be at the Browns Backers President's Summit again next year, but maybe even before then. So
for sure.
Perfect. It was great being here with you guys. Good to see you again.
Thanks, Lauren.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Yeah. Go Browns. This is Lauren Kostelnik from the Bowling Green Browns Backers in Bowling Green, Ohio with the Burning River Sportscast. I hope you enjoyed. Go Browns.